Welcome to Atarashi Hinode by T3 Solutions. In this tutorial, we will learn about if statements in Python. We use if statements when we want to execute a particular set of statements if a condition is true. The if statements start with the word if. Then we must mention our condition. Then we must enter the colon which marks the start of the if block. The intended statements are performed only when the condition value is true. If the condition is false, then the Python interpreter will not execute the statements inside the if block. Now let's take a look at the general structure of the if block. So as explained before, the statement starts with the word if, then we must mention the condition, and then we must put the colon. And all the statements that must be executed if the condition is true must be indented. Now let's take a look at the control flow of the if statements. So as you can see here, the Python interpreter will first check the condition, and if the condition is true, then it will execute the body of the if block. If the condition is false, then it will skip the body of if block and executes whatever commands that comes outside the if block. Now let us look at the control flow of this program. Here in the first line, the Python engine will ask an user input to enter a number, and then it will convert that string value into an integer and store it in the variable a. And then in the second line, the Python engine will compare the condition of the if statement. So here it will check if the variable a, that is the user input a, is greater than or equal to 0. So if the condition is true, means when the user inputs a positive number or any whole number which includes 0, then all the statements that come under the if block will be executed. So here first statement, that is print command, will display the string you have entered a positive number, and then the engine will move to the next line. Python engine will print the string it is and then the value of the variable which they have entered, and then the engine moves to the third line and then it prints the string thanks. Now since this is the end of the if block, Python will come out of the block and print the commands that are outside the block. So here in this case, Python will print, do you want to enter another number? So now let us look at the output. So here Python asks the user input with the prompt enter a number, and then the user gives the value 2, which is a positive number. So the Python executes the first command inside the if block, which is you have entered a positive number. Then it displays the string it is, and then it displays the value of the variable a, which in this case is 2. And then it executes the third command inside the if block, which is thanks. Now it moves outside the block and executes the statements outside the if block, which is, do you want to enter another number? In another case, if the user enters a negative value, which in this example is -4, then all the three print statements and any other statements that comes under the if block will not be executed because the condition is false, and the Python will directly jump outside the loop and execute whatever commands that come outside the loop. So in this case, the three print commands will be skipped and Python will display, do you want to enter another number, which is mentioned outside the block. So now let's see how to rewrite the program. So here the only difference is that the entire body of the if block is mentioned in the same line, and we can use semicolons to separate each statements. And this format is allowed in Python and it returns no error. So as you can see here, we have executed the same program as before. It asks for an user input and user enters a positive number and it prints all the three print statements. Then it goes out of the if block and executes the commands outside the if block. Now let's see about if-else statement. Sometimes we might need to execute a block of codes if a condition is true and some other block of codes if the condition is false. This is when we will use if-else statement in Python. The else statement must be mentioned without indentation and the commands that come under the else block must be indented. Python engine will first check the if condition. If it is true, then it will execute the if block and then it will execute the codes that come outside the block. But if the condition is false, then it will execute the else block and then it moves outside the block and execute the codes that comes outside the else block. Now let us examine this program. So first, Python engine will ask an user input with prompt enter your age, and then the string will be converted into integer by using the integer command. Next, it will check the if condition whether the variable age is greater than or equal to 18. If it is greater than or equal to 18, then the if block will be executed. If it is false, then the engine will execute the else block. So as you can see here, the user has entered the value 20 and then the engine executed the three print commands inside the if block. If it is false, in the second example, when the user have entered 17 which is less than 18, the if condition has become false and the Python engine executed the else block, which is the string your age is whatever variable the user entered and then you are not eligible to vote. Sometimes we will need to check multiple conditions before executing the else block. This is when we use if-elif statement. Elif stands for else if. So first we will give the if condition and then we will give the elif command and mention our second condition, and at last we will give the else block. So now the else block will be executed only when both if condition and the elif conditions are false. Now let's see the workflow of this program. So first, an user input of data type integer will be stored in the variable age. Then now the Python engine will check the if condition. If the condition is true, then it will execute the if block. So this will be the output. Or in another case, if the if condition is false, then it will check the else if condition. If the elif condition is satisfied, then the else if block will be executed and else block will not be executed. And this will be the output. And if the else if condition is false, then else block will be executed and this will be the output. So to conclude, else block will be executed only when if and else if conditions are false. This is the end of this tutorial. See you in next tutorial.